Yes, the sun is going to rise tomorrow, and Metallica is going to play Enter Sandman at the end of the show.
And welcome back to another episode of Exposing Ourselves. I'm Travis Ritchie, and this is episode 26. This is the show where we expose each other to new things. Matt, a big music fan, will assign me one of his favorite albums or playlists to listen to each week, and I, a movie buff, will give him one of my favorite films, and we come together on this podcast to discuss it all. And with me, as always, is my good friend,
Matt Runquist. Yes, Travis, that's right. I'm here. I watched the movie What Lies Beneath, and you listened to LCD's Soundsystem this week.
Yes, we did both of those things. But before we get into that, some housekeeping.
Housekeeping.
How are you? I don't know.
I'm doing pretty well and have been doing a fair amount of housekeeping. Recovery from surgery continues over here. My wife is doing pretty well, though, and it appears to have been successful. So hopefully we're sort of at the end of the road here once she's done recovering from surgery. Very exciting news from my.
How long is the recovery process?
Well, she is on lifting restrictions for another 3 weeks. So
that's not too bad.
It's 6 weeks total, but the first week you wouldn't want to lift anything anyways. Yeah. So
well, I was thinking about, I compared it to my broken ribs last year, and I couldn't move at all for like a week, and then I was already walking within the first 5 days or so, and then it took about 3 months to heal completely, but I was healed completely. So
yeah, very exciting. So that's really good. We're also in the middle of fireworks season here, and we have one dog, 3 dogs who completely ignore the fireworks, but we have one dog who very, very much does not like the fireworks.
No.
And he's our biggest dog, but he likes to go up into the guest bedroom closet, and he has a bed in there, and he lays down. It's very dark. He has a fan on in there, and he likes to use it as his little meditation space when the fireworks are going off. So
that's good. I have a dog who you might be able to hear in there, who we have just started this fireworks, and this will be Coco's first fireworks season. Yeah. Also her first summer. So we are just now getting into our heat wave here in LA, and our first heat wave. And I talked about our heat a little bit last week.
Yeah.
And it's so funny now that we are in it, and we're running the air conditioning, and it's funny because I have friends who are already complaining about the heat here, and it is still fairly mild compared to what we end up getting later in the year, with topping out over 100 degrees, nights that are still in the 70s or even hitting 80 degrees at the low. So I'm like, this is not so bad, guys. Just chill. But I did go on a lovely hike with Coco last night, and we did a kind of a sunset hike, which was really lovely. So it was cool and lovely. It just she's so much fun to hike with. So I'm enjoying that. And I had a birthday.
Oh, that's right. You did have a birthday. How was it?
It was good. I kind of posted about it on my Facebook page, but I went to the zoo. A friend of mine and his kids took me to the zoo, and I think they're about 4 years old, so they're still of the age where they are having a good time until they're not.
Yeah.
And then they really are not having a good time.
Then they hit the wall.
So that was interesting, and I did, it was neat. It's really neat for me to see how I daddy, like how there's this thing where there was a bridge, and so there was a hill basically that the kids would run up, and then they'd run down and into my arms, and I would swing them up into the air, and they did this like 5 times each, and I was getting a little tired, but they had to run up the hill in order to get the run down, and so it was kind of like a trick to get them worn out a little bit. But it was so much fun.
How idyllic. That's adorable.
Yeah, so the beach, and then the zoo, and then we had dinner, and then I had a game night thing. A friend of mine picked me up, and we went to this a gaming pub called Guildhall. It's in Burbank.
Okay.
And it's a place where gamers go to, meet and drink and game.
Yeah.
And so we were out on the back patio playing this like werewolf type, demons in a medieval village type game, and it was very complicated, but also a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah, those gaming pubs have done reasonably well here in Milwaukee. There have been a few iterations. One was more video game focused that also had board games.
I think you took me to that one, didn't you?
I believe I did. That was quite a while ago. But yeah, that one has since closed, but a couple others have opened. I think there's only one or two right now. It seems to be like a one per major metropolitan area type of thing, unless it's like, New York, LA, Chicago.
Right. LA, well, we have our different neighborhoods, so, it's easy to have one in the Valley and then have another one over in Hollywood area.
Sure.
So, and they don't really overlap with each other too much. But yeah, so it was a good week. I think I enjoyed myself quite a bit, and I spent some of it listening to some music.
Yeah, LCD Soundsystem. Well, I don't know though. We talked about the music last week first, I think.
Do you want to shake things up? And you know what? I actually would like to talk about the music first.
Oh, son of a gun! No shaking this week. Straight down the middle. Well, let me introduce LCD Soundsystem.
Do it.
Then. Yeah,
please.
So LCD Soundsystem is I would say, alternative dance rock band. They started in Brooklyn around the year 2000. They became very popular in the East Coast sort of hipster scene. And I really like their music. It includes elements of electronica, including like the repetitive nature and the synthesizers, but the songwriting is more of a indie rock type of sensibility. There are, complete lyrics to every song rather than just a few, get up and dance, dance, dance. There's like complete lyrics and everything. And they really hit kind of a sweet spot that's not exactly like what anyone else is doing. This album is the first album of theirs that I heard. It's called Sounds of Silver. It's 9 tracks and almost an hour long, so a little bit of a departure from what I've been giving you. But I really like it. It's the type of thing that I can put on and listen to closely and enjoy, but also the type of thing that I can put on when I'm doing something else and just have those moments that are really fun for me to listen to. They very famously had 2 or 3 nights at Madison Square Garden sold out, which is obviously a big deal. I think that's 15,000 people or 18,000 people. And then those were billed as being their last shows ever. They were going to break up and never make any more music. And then, of course, 4 years later, they very famously came back, and LCD Soundsystem is still around. So, what did you think?
That's amazing. So I just want to give you some heads up, and I'm going to use air quotes in the following sentence, and but because we are a radio show, I can't do them, and I'm not going to do them for you. You can see me because we're on FaceTime, but I'm just going to see if you can detect where the air quotes are. I am going to be a little harsher on this music than I normally am, because I didn't like it, and Matt, this music made me angry, and
no way.
Coming from the relative high of last week's Tegan and Sarah, and coming to this, I think it's very simple why. It's it's the repetitiveness, and I feel like there was enough actual lyrics in this entire album to make one song, but they repeated everything over and over and over and over, and it made me so angry listening to it. And I was just like, I I need more, because there wasn't, this sounded to me, and I'm trying not to actually get riled up here, but this sounded to me like something someone could do. Like, it sounded to me like the stuff that I was making in GarageBand 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
You know, like I was just fooling around with they have the loops, and you're like, oh, I'm going to click on that loop and it's going to repeat and repeat and repeat until I click on another loop, and it kind of adds that in there. And then I'll be able to, and I'll say a little, I have this idea, and for a piece of, for a lyric, and I'll just say, read all the pamphlets and watch the tapes. And then I'll just repeat that for a few times, and, or whatever. So yeah, that was
Okay, so let me
also in the first song. Wait.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
not done yet.
Oh,
Because
I
in the
know.
first song, for instance, there was a lot, this intro, this beat that they started, right? And it went, and it repeated 4 or 5 or 6 times, and then finally a drum came in. And I'm like, you just needed to cut that down, make it more interesting by cutting it in half. Like, if there is a kind of a feel that we have when we listen to music, and I'm not obviously a music aficionado, but I have been listening to music my whole life, and I get this kind of innate, like, you have a certain number of repeats before you add in a new element. And these guys just went too many repeats without any new stuff. And in fact, the example that I gave you, I think Watch the Tapes is the name of the song. It starts with read all the pamphlets and watch the tapes as the first line. And it repeats it 3 times and then didn't repeat it again. And I was shocked that it only repeated it 3 times, because every other song does it more than that. I will say there are 2 things that I do like about this.
Okay.
There is a song called "Sound of Silver," and the lyric is, "Sound of silver, talk to me, makes you want to feel like a teenager until you remember the feelings of a real, live, emotional teenager. Then you think again."
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's a very interesting little poem, right? Because it's true. Like, we all want to feel like teenagers again, but then you think about, what it was actually like, and you're like, oh, no, never mind. They repeat that lyric with no changes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, and that is all that exists in the song. And I was dying by the end of it, and it's a 7-minute song. The other thing, then it is followed by the final song of the album, which is "New York, I Love You, But You're Bringing Me Down," which is an interesting. It's a departure from what they do in the rest of the album, and there's a lot of interesting poetry about this person who, and I relate, because I'm in this big city that I love. I love LA, but it does bring you down sometimes. There are things about living in this big city that you love, and but it's grating on your soul in a way, and so that's kind of what he's trying to express. And the poetry is interesting, certainly by comparison with the rest of the album, but this is also the only time where where the guy tries to sing. I don't know the lead singer's name, but he tries to sing, and he's not a singer, and and it's a little
Well, I
annoying.
would say 20,000 hipsters in Brooklyn would disagree with you. They think he's very much a singer.
Okay. Okay. So
Yes. Well, okay. So, I mean, one of the things that appears to be bothering you is just the minimalism of this. So, you're familiar with minimalism as a musical entity?
Tell me about it.
I can't remember who it's big on, but it's kind of similar to the rise of, like, abstract art and everything, where minimalism was built around repeating figures, right? And the interest of the music comes in very slight variations or no variations over the course of very long pieces, right? And this is definitely built around like repeating motifs. Now, the idea is that this type of music can introduce sort of a trance-like state, which is why I thought this might go nicely with your hiking, right? Because oftentimes when I'm hiking, I find that the simple act of putting one foot in front of the other, especially on a trail that I've been on many times, can be very meditative, and this is very meditative music. Now,
Interesting.
it's entirely possible that I mean, like, you have definitely in the past expressed that you like your music to be sort of active and saying something, and sort of wrapped up in a package, and this is not that, right? This is very sort of expansive, like it's intended to evoke a mood, right? Which, similar to like Godspeed You Black Emperor. But with, you're right, absolutely, like even less movement, right?
Yeah, and I will say my hikes tend to be very active hikes. I don't generally go on ambling hikes, that don't require attention. So I'm doing hikes with climbing and rocks and stuff that you actually have to pay attention. And so a trance-like state doesn't really go well with that anyway. So I get that. Yeah, I can see the appeal of that, the way you describe it. And I think that I love to dance. I love club dancing. I haven't gone in a long time, but in my 20s and 30s especially, I love to go out dancing. And
listener, please take Travis out dancing.
Yeah, please. My last couple of boyfriends have not liked dancing, so. But the one thing that I remember from those days is that when you're listening to music, you have kind of and you're moving your body to the music, and this is also maybe not trance-like, but also there is a rhythm to it, and you link your body to the music in a way, and you can predict when a change is going to happen, when the bass is going to drop, when the drums are going to kick in, when something is going to change in the music. And I think it's like it's a certain kind of rhythm to the poetry of music that I think that these guys just went longer and more than I'm used to, right? And so you're expecting 2 repeats of a refrain before something changes, or 3, or something, and these guys just went too much. So that's what I wasn't into.
The other point I want to make is that you're saying, oh, this reminds me a lot of music that I made in GarageBand, with loops. And I want you to think about not devaluing that kind of music. I almost said devaluating, which is not a word.
No, it's a word, but I get what you're saying.
Devaluating? I don't think devaluating is a word, but devaluing is a word. And music doesn't have to be difficult to play in order to move us or to connect with us. Music doesn't have to be complex in order to be appreciated. And some of the things which are very complex are also very moving, right? But this idea that a certain type of music is in the abstract best, I do, and you're not saying that, but like, I do try to avoid value judgments about this music is simple, therefore it's bad, because there is I watch a few YouTubers. I've been, learning guitar, and it's fun to listen to the guitar teachers on YouTube. But there are some of them who are very, very sort of stuffy about, oh, modern pop music is so boring. It's 3 chords, and they just repeat over and over, and it's the same chord progression for every popular song. Hi, Coco. And I find that attitude to be really like stilted, pop music is pop music. It's meant to be popular. And any music that is honestly expressing what somebody is feeling, or any music that's engaging honestly with the world and emotion, is music that I can get behind, even if it's not necessarily my thing. And so I appreciate you, yes, this is not your thing, and that's cool, but I would absolutely love to hear your garage band songs if you saved any of them, because that is, it's a type of music that is accessible to everyone, and it is therefore something that I love hearing.
That's a really interesting take. And I think I don't agree with the idea that, like, I don't want to see a movie by everybody. I don't want to see the movie that a college kid makes on his iPhone, because I was that college kid, and I know that movie was not good. And also, I know that my GarageBand music was not good, but I was just playing. But that's kind of what it felt like. This felt more like playing rather than having an actual. I don't know. It just wasn't for me, and I'll leave it at that, because I do like, I know you like it, and I don't want to be too negative about it. But this was just absolutely not my cup of tea.
That's absolutely fair. All right, well, I think it's probably time to give it a rating.
This was my Spider-Man.
This was your Spider-Man.
So my rating is, we are not probably allowed to give a rating of 0.
Yeah, it is a scale from 1 to 10.
1 to 10, okay. So I would, I think the last song is a 3 of a song, and it elevates but I think to me it elevates this music from a 0 to a 1. I'm going to give this a 1.
That's not an elevation. 1 is the bottom of the scale.
It is, but
you can't go below the bottom of the scale. You don't. Okay. You don't apparently understand how scales work.
No, I don't. This is why I'm not a musical guy. Music joke. Yeah, this was so very much not my thing, which is weird, because there are things we've listened to that have been not my thing, but not as much as this.
Well, I'm glad you left yourself some room to rate this at the very, very bottom.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I got to admit,
I've never been angry listening to music before. That was an experience.
I thought there was one other one that you were angry about, but that's interesting. First of all, I should give this my rating. Please do. This to me is a solid 7. This is music I really like. I listen to it pretty often, and it's something different. Something different from a lot of what I listen to.
Yeah.
But I guess I am a little fascinated by the visceralness of your negative reaction to this. And
I'm also fascinated that how cool is it that, I kind of like the idea that just everybody's into something different.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a very interesting thing to really see at play in this moment.
Yeah, because I like this music, but there are people that LCD Soundsystem is absolutely their favorite band, and this album is not unrepresentative of what they do. Like this album is not like out there or whatever. This is the type of thing that they do. Yeah. So, anyways, all right.
I am curious, given we were talking last week, and you said that last week's Tegan and Sarah was one of your top 10 albums. How many of your top 10 albums have you assigned me so far, do you think?
Well, I know you've heard Graceland, so I'm not going to assign that to you. How many? I think Tegan and Sarah's The Con was the first one that I had assigned to you. Yeah.
All right, interesting. All right,
And I
I'd be interested
probably,
to see more of those.
yeah, I don't know how many of those are ones that I would consider exposing you to.
Really?
Yeah, but there is a whole breadth of music out there that I'm almost 100% certain you will dislike that I do not expose you to at all.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but a lot of times you've given me albums that you think ahead of time that I won't like, but I do value the exposure to, right?
Hmm.
And so that could be the case with those as well.
I mean, it's entirely possible. It's a big world, and we're hoping to keep podcasting for a while. So,
Yeah, yeah. It is interesting. I was thinking about Spider-Man, not only listening to last week's episode where we mentioned it, but also the sequel came out, the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
yeah, people really love it, and good on
Yeah,
them.
I saw
You
it,
know.
and it's pretty good. It's very, very, it's a lot. It's like they took everything from the first movie and cranked it up in a creative way, which is interesting. So anyway, but we should move to the music. We should move to the.
Yeah, we should just do another album right now. I think that's what we should do.
Can we please?
Yeah.
Let's listen. Let's move to the movie.
Yeah.
So I had you watch a fairly old movie in our lineup. We went back to 2000 and watched What Lies Beneath, which is a movie directed by Robert Zemeckis from Back to the Future fame and Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Forrest Gump, and he here tries his hand at a kind of a supernatural thriller and very much in the style of a Hitchcock movie. Like he really wanted to evoke a lot of Hitchcockian themes and even camera movements and shots. And so, but because it's Zemeckis, he is always pushing the boundaries of filmmaking technology. So there are a lot of very interesting shots and also just special effects and stuff that are in this movie. And it stars Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer as a couple who are in a haunted house. And what's fascinating to me is I didn't realize it until now, but this was written by Clark Gregg, who you won't be excited by, but he plays Agent Phil Coulson in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And this is basically the only movie that he wrote, but it was one of the 10 highest grossing movies of the year it came out. I think it brought in almost $300 million. So, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was a pretty big movie. Well, it's Harrison Ford at his right, it is Harrison Fordius, and it really, when he's still like hot enough to be like shirtless in a movie.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Harrison Ford's abs are a highlight in this movie.
Yeah, and Michelle Pfeiffer too. She's gorgeous in this, so she's doing her like sexy mama thing. So, what did you think? I mean, do you want to hear why I liked it? I don't.
Yeah, I would love to hear why you liked it.
So I remember seeing this movie when it came out, and this was a movie that Robert Zemeckis made in the break while he was waiting for Tom Hanks to lose weight in Castaway, and so he just took the entire crew and they made this other movie. And I think it's a pretty standard ghost story, although I remember being surprised by the twist, and I'm curious if you saw the twist coming. And but even without that, I enjoyed watching it a second time because I think the performances are interesting, and it's a little dated in some ways. In just there's this naturalism that has come into movies in the last 20 years that is a little bit lacking in this, where it's still a little presentational, but I liked the ghost story. The special effects were great. The lighting, the house that they built for this thing, for these couples to live in is really kind of another character in the movie, and yeah, really enjoyed it. There's a couple of shots that I'll talk about, but the camera work and I think I think what I liked best about it is the technical movie making of it.
Yeah.
Like it's a good movie, but wrapped up in just a lot of skillful movie making.
Yeah, and I will agree with that it is wrapped up in a lot of technical movie making, and that is kind of the highlight or the reason to watch this movie, because the movie itself was kind of meh. Kind of, yeah, it was just kind of, it was, oh God, I have the opportunity to use a little bit of slang here. It was very mid. Yes, it was very mid.
Okay.
It's funny, right? Because you hear about Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer being in a movie, and you're expecting acting fireworks. And I gotta say, Harrison Ford both feels miscast to me in this role, and feels like he is just leaning on his Harrison Fordness a lot.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, he does. It's like they're like, be angry, and he's like, oh, I remember what Han Solo's like when he's angry, and he does that thing where he like shakes his fist, and he's like, he's got off, and he's got angry, and and I mean, I think that somebody might have given him a note about he's desperate to avoid being discovered or something, and so he's like, his anger is bubbling up out of nowhere or something. But I gotta admit, I just did not like him in this movie. Michelle Pfeiffer, on the other hand, was fantastic. She is 100% the reason to watch this movie. She is really, really good in this. I think the story is kind of a nothing. And it's funny, as you go along and the story is revealed, you get to this point where you're like, a lot of the ghost elements of this story are completely extraneous to the story.
Yeah.
You're like, if there was no ghost, she still, her amnesia would have gradually worn off, and she gradually would have remembered, and
right. Well, that's also very Hitchcockian, right? Where the supernatural aspect is almost secondary to the characters and what they're going through.
What are you referring to as the twist?
The idea that he killed the woman.
I saw that from outer space.
Really?
It surprises me that. Now maybe it's because I've seen movies in the meantime or something, but that felt like there was a point about 30 minutes into this movie where I'm like, why is Harrison Ford here? And the answer is always, because he's the bad guy, right? Like that. Because that. There was like very early on in this movie, you're like, why the hell did they cast Harrison Ford for this nothing husband role, right? This dutiful go off to college.
I don't think about those things, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, he's involved. This whole thing where she figures out the murder in the first 10 minutes is a misdirect, right? Clearly, that was so clearly. The fight between the neighbors was such a clearly staged sort of.
Well, but you don't
scene.
think that in most movies the idea, the reveal could have been that he was having an affair and she killed herself and is now haunting. You don't think that would have been a satisfying reveal, and they just went that one more step?
No.
And justified his casting.
No, I don't.
Okay.
But anyways, this wasn't like some of the movies that I don't like where I was angry while watching it. There were a few points where there were a few points where I was pausing it and seeing how much time was left, and I was like, how is this movie over 2 hours, right? The story here does not justify a 2-hour running time. I think if this had been tightened up, and maybe I think I've made this note about a couple other movies, but if this running time had been tightened up a little, even 10 minutes less would have been nice. And if it was 15 or 20 minutes less, there's a lot of just really long language shots here that don't do a whole lot of work. And I understand, right? You're a filmmaker, you want to make film, but I think the tension could have been ratcheted up a little quicker, and I don't think the movie would have suffered for it, especially because I didn't feel like the story kind of, surprised me a whole bunch, right?
Okay. Yeah, I wonder if tension would have been ratcheted up by cutting, because I
I'll tell you the idea that I had in the moment. I think it would have been a really amazing ending for when she is drowning at the end and she saves herself, for that to be the end of the movie.
Oh, God.
Yes. Where she saves herself, right?
Yeah.
Like, he tries to kill her, okay? She's drowning. He slips, breaks his head open on the sink, and then there's like a 2 or 3 minute long like shot where she slowly manages to save herself from drowning. And like, that for me was like such a huge emotional release, right?
Yeah.
To like watch that. It's like really detailed, and it's not like, it's like scary. You can like feel yourself drowning, right?
That was a hugely tense moment.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it just gets released, right? And like, wouldn't it have been fascinating to be like, oh, we'll cut to a quick shot of her like in a blanket with talking to a police officer. There's flashing lights, blah blah blah, and then that's the end. Instead, all of a sudden we got all of us. Yes. All of a sudden we got super villain Harrison Ford that's like jumping off of cars, and like, it was just crazy. It was like, it just came out of like, it felt like a different movie after that point. Like, all of a sudden it's like, oh no, we need to have a bunch of like Freddy Krueger stuff, and not Freddy Krueger, Jason. Yes, it felt very like all of a sudden he's this implacable killer that cannot be killed, and it felt like it was trucked in from a different movie.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Really?
But,
really?
Yeah,
okay.
No, I think
so
it would have been unsatisfying.
No. I wanna talk about this. So one, he just magically recovers from a head injury that knocks him out. The car thing, right? Like, he. Oh God, what happened? Oh, that's right. He like goes through the back window of the car. There's that bizarre thing with where you want him to get stabbed by the sailboat mast and he doesn't. That was a nice MacGuffin, by the way. I was like, oh, here's this giant sailboat mast. He's obviously going to get stabbed by this, and then he didn't. There were just several things where it was like, where did this everything here has been super grounded except for the ghost story.
I don't think that he was a superhero. I think that he was desperate, and people do crazy things when they're desperate. And I don't think that I don't see it the same way. And I think that it would have been unsatisfying to have it end there because in that moment she hasn't done anything to resolve the situation. She resolved that tiny situation of being in the tub, and I do love that they the foreshadowing and the setting up of things, like when she goes into the lab and they're giving the mice that chemical that incapacitates the mice, and you're like,
yeah, that was the most ridiculous. Like, okay, does everybody see the domino? Okay, we're setting up the domino. Here it is right here. Does anybody not know what foreshadowing is? Anybody?
Okay.
Yeah, that was very.
I thought they played it subtly enough where it was almost a throwaway, but good enough to know that, okay, this is important to know. Okay, so you didn't like it as much. That's fine.
No.
I really loved two. I want to talk about two shots that I did love. At least two shots.
Oh, okay. One of them is the glass floor, and
yes.
And oh God, what's the other one? I don't know. What's the other one? We'll talk about
the
other
glass
one.
Floor.
Don't worry.
The other one is when she's straightening up the bathroom, and she walks out into the bedroom, and in a oneer.
Yes, I've heard about this shot before.
Into the hallway, and then sees the steam coming out of the bathroom, and goes back into the bathroom, and the bathroom is filled with steam, and the bathtub is filled to the brim with still water.
Yeah.
And It's such a great shot, and my instinct was that the whole thing was that a lot of that was CGI, but apparently it was not. Apparently it was a real set change that they did all in the time where Michelle Pfeiffer walked through the room.
Yeah, and that's the type of thing I don't really notice oneers. Like I'm always super impressed by them when people point them out to me, but I'm not I don't notice them. But yes, that was really cool. Okay, tell me about the glass floor.
I don't know I don't know how the glass floor, how they did it. It's you have this shot where Michelle Pfeiffer is laying on the floor of she can't move. The Harrison Ford has knocked her out with this chemical that paralyzes you but leaves you aware. And so she's laying on the floor of her house, and the camera kind of zooms in on her face and then goes below the floor to look up at her through the floor and to see Harrison Ford above her. And I just don't know how they did it. It's not.
I mean, I assume it's just a glass floor.
It must be a glass floor that they replaced with actual floor. Before with CGI. In the first part of the shot. That must be how they did it, but it's so seamless and a very interesting shot that I've never really seen before. I've seen it since. David Fincher was another director that really liked to do impossible shots like this in some of his early movies. If you watch Panic Room, has a couple of really interesting ones, and Fight Club, that kind of thing. So so I don't know. I didn't love this movie. It's not my favorite movie, but I enjoyed watching it again. It was kind of like a teddy bear that you enjoy seeing and holding on to again. And
I'll say this about the film. I would agree with you that it's Hitchcockian, and one of the ways that I can tell is that I kind of don't like Hitchcock either. Like,
oh, interesting.
I'm a big Psycho fan. I enjoy Psycho, but most of the rest of Hitchcock that I have seen, I have not been in love with. I don't hate it, but I'm always like, it strikes me as very old, right? Which it is.
I'm the same way. You know me. Anything pre-Jaws is generally holds less interest for me. But I will say that when I've been exposed to Hitchcock stuff, I have generally found it very interesting. I went to a screening of Rear Window. Is that the one with Grace Kelly?
Yes, I believe so.
And oh man, was that a good movie? Yeah. I was shocked by how much I liked it, and so anyway, I generally am on the same board with you, and I in that respect, I'm not like, oh my God, it's Hitchcockian. I just like that they did some of those like Hitchcock shots, like the shot through the mirror. Lots of mirror shots in this.
Mirror shots, and boy, is that clawfoot tub important. You get the sense very early on that the clawfoot tub is important, and I will say this: that's good foreshadowing, right? Like, you get the sense early on that the clawfoot tub is important, even though you don't understand why or how. Her walking into her husband's lab at like 8 p.m. and it's mysteriously filled with people, including somebody doing a first day lecture on how halothane works. Sorry, I work with anesthesia. Like in my job, and so this sort of like idea that somebody would just be like, this is how we do the thing with the rat, see, it was very like, that's not how that goes. But
okay.
Anyways, so that may be why,
Mr. Professional Chemist.
That may be why I didn't like that as well as you did. So.
Fair enough. So why don't you go ahead and give it a rating?
It's slightly below average for me. There is a lot of cool technical stuff. I love Michelle Pfeiffer. I would have liked somebody other than Harrison Ford in that role, somebody that wouldn't immediately be clocked as this guy is also important. So I'm going to give this a 4.
Okay,
Slightly.
okay.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. I think it's going to be above average for me. I really enjoyed. It held up for me the experience of watching it, and I think it's going to. I think it's going to be a 7 for me.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. All right.
yeah, for sure. What have we got for next week?
Next week, we have something fun and something new, but not something I'm super familiar with.
Okay.
This is there's a singer-songwriter named Vance Joy, and I first heard his songs a couple of years ago. My wife liked him quite a bit, and he gets played on pop radio. And I was listening to pop radio because I was commuting in my car a fair bit, and I was kind of take it or leave it until this year. I heard a couple of Vance Joy songs that I really liked. Um, Saturday Sun is what this playlist starts off with, but the one that I really got into and then made me sort of reevaluate him is there's a song called Missing Piece. So those are the two songs that I would sort of point out to you as maybe high points. Although, to be fair, I think his fan base would say Riptide is a high point because that is the song that made him famous. And I believe he still plays it last at his concerts, which I don't know if you know anything about how concerts work, but most artists generally like play their complete set and they'll have like their most popular song missing, and then they'll come out for an encore and play their most popular song. Like, so for instance, Metallica would play Enter Sandman as an encore.
Interesting.
Right?
That seems like it's a it's that seems like casting Harrison Ford in a movie.
Yeah,
right.
right.
It's
like, well,
it's like nobody's gonna be like, are they really not gonna play Enter Sandman?
yeah,
So
exactly. Like,
there's no actual tension there.
yes, the sun is going to rise tomorrow, and Metallica is going to play Enter Sandman at the end of the show. Like, that's, yeah. So anyway, so Riptide is that song for Vance Joy right now.
Okay.
So, but it's upbeat singer songwriter stuff. I think you'll like it quite a bit. I like it quite a bit, but I'm not as familiar with this as some of the things that I have introduced you to. So I don't have his life story.
Got it. Well, what do you feel like today? We covered this last week where you've already seen Castaway, right? That's why I assigned you.
Yep, I have
Okay,
seen
so I'm going to
Castaway.
take that off my list finally. What do you feel like? Do you feel like a drama, a little action, a little special effects?
Oh man, gosh, you always ask me this, and I don't know, man. You're the one in charge. Take charge.
All right. You know what? It's at the very top of my list, and I think I want to give it to you. I don't know how you'll react to it, but I want to assign you Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Okay. I remember this coming out and thinking I might like to go see it, so I'm not.
Yeah, so
I'm not
what this
against it.
movie is basically, so Planet of the Apes had a whole series of movies, probably like 6 movies back in the, I don't know, 60s, 70s, 80s, stuff like that, where we had very like humans in masks playing apes. So round about 2011, they decided to do a prequel movie that explains kind of how the Planet of the Apes came to be, the rise of the Planet of the Apes, and it stars James Franco as a scientist character, and also Andy Serkis, who became famous for doing Gollum in Lord of the Rings, is doing performance capture in this movie as well as the young ape. And so it's all CGI, performance capture, interesting stuff. And yeah, I've seen it once, and I will say this has spawned a trilogy of movies that really kind of goes into, what's going to happen, you know where it's going to lead. But the journey that they go on with these characters is kind of fascinating. And I've only seen each of them once, and I'm curious to go back and watch this movie again.
All right, cool. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully it won't. Hopefully it's not over 2 hours.
I don't know. It's an hour and it's 1 105 minutes, so it's
nice.
just over an hour and 45 minutes.
Gosh,
So.
I was joking. I honestly assumed that a movie like this would be 2 hours and 15 minutes. So that's great. I already like it better than I did just moments ago.
Great. Well, I'm curious to see what you think. It's very special effects, but it's also, I wouldn't say it's a special effects driven movie. I think the special effects are there to service the story, from what I remember. But again, this is a science fiction type, but it's set in modern day. I don't know. I'm very curious to see what happens.
Yeah, me too. All right, cool.
All right.
Well, Travis, thank you for exposing yourself to me this week.
Oh, Matt, thanks for exposing yourself to me. I did appreciate it, even if I didn't love the thing.
That's awesome. Have a good week.
Oh, you too, Matt. Bye. Oh, wait.
Oh, wait, what? Are we going to do it?
Of course we
we should. Okay, let's do it.
I mean, don't you want to?
Yeah, I do. All right.
Okay.
Listener, I'm going to do this quick. If you would like to get in touch with us, you can be part of the conversation on our Facebook page. You can search for Exposing Ourselves and you'll find it. Or you can email us at exposingourselvespodcast@gmail.com. And we will read you on the air and we'll talk to you and it'll be super fun.
Be part of the conversation. I like that quite a bit. That's good.
Thanks.
That's good. Good job. All right. Talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.